Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Educated College Snap channel. How you doing? So today I wanted to talk about the weekend missions, just my thoughts on it so far, and there have been some changes to the weekend mission structure that I felt you guys should know. So overall, let's get started. So the main topic is I just think weekend missions should be fun and rewarding. That should be the base concept which it blossoms out. And I really do feel like they've moved away from that and they're kind of just focusing on other things and adjusting, or maybe not adjusting, how the weekend mission is right now. So some news about the weekend missions, right? It's now 48 hours to complete instead of 72. So you were able to get an extra 24 hours to complete the missions. That has changed now. There's probably some reasons, and I'm going to guess some of them. Now for the second one, the gold missions, they're using Nimrod. So usually the first week of the month, they don't put the new season pass card. Or they put the season pass card for tokens, and so they have to have a secondary card to use for the second one. Last time it was Patriot, this time they're using Nimrod. And then the amount of wins is still the same. It's still 20, 15, and 3. And then the tokens value is 100 instead of maybe 300 or 500 or even 1,000, which was some of the other rewards before. And just my current thoughts on the weekend missions is overall, I do think most of it is a slog. I actually normally don't complete the second one. I can usually maybe do the first one and the third one. Third one is 3 wins, which is doable for me. Well, I mean, it's doable, and I do it. And the 20 wins has no deck requirement, so it's easier to me to just casually play. But usually that second one, you're forced to play a card you maybe don't like or don't really want to play. It was Phoenix Force the last time. Really don't have a lot of motivation to be doing that particular one, and I really think that's kind of sad because I'm a pretty, quote unquote heavy user, right? I play the game decently, a large amount, and even I don't necessarily feel like doing that particular weekend missions. It just looks daunting, and it just feels like it'll take a long time for the reward. So that's my current thoughts, but I just wanted to kind of go deep into some of them and some changes for sure. So first thing off is just the less time to complete the mission. So they did move it to 48 hours instead of 72, and I'm assuming they're doing that because many players were completing it on the last day, which would have been a Monday for a lot of people in NA, right? And other regions as well, right? So the main idea of the weekend missions were for people to do it in the weekend, right? So by having this Monday or this extra day to complete it probably was true that a lot of people were doing it on the final day, and it probably did not solve the issue of fixing player dips on the weekend, right? So because people could complete all 25 of the missions, the daily reward structure, during the weekday, there wasn't really that incentive to play in the weekend. So this was kind of their fix, give them something to do on the weekends, and then hopefully that'll bump up the numbers. However, because they added this extra Monday, now taking it away, it feels pretty bad. Now the issue is, like, let's say they never introduced this extra day and it was always 48 hours from the beginning. I'm pretty sure it would not feel that bad because you wouldn't even think about this option of having this extra day to complete it. But because they introduced it with this extra day and now they're removing it, now it feels pretty bad. Now it feels like you have less time, and it's just kind of a weird system. Another thing I did want to talk about was the global player base, essentially. The release time is not adjusted by regions at all. So for some people in other parts of the world, the weekend missions start like middle of the weekend and goes through the workday essentially, or it starts a little bit earlier. So it's not with this 48 hours. It's not the case that everyone's going to be able to do these on the weekend based on where you live and where it starts for you. You might not get the mission starting during your weekend time, which is a little bit sad for them. Which is something I just want to talk about. Sometimes it's hard to think about all the global player base and some of the differences in that, and that's something I just saw and I wanted to bring up. So just something to think about. Next thing I did want to talk about was the time to value ratio is skewed. So when you look at the normal daily missions, the 6 missions you get per day, well, the 6 missions you get per day, it usually does not take that long to complete those missions, especially if you're focusing on them. If you read the quest and you're like, okay, I'm going to build a deck to do these quests easily, well, usually you can get them done in a couple of matches. However, these weekend mission quests, especially the win 20 games or the win 15 games of a particular deck archetype, right? Those can take a long time. Those could take hours to complete for the small general reward, right? The 200 credits is very negligible, honestly, compared to how much you're getting per week. The 150 gold is meaningful, but that is the hardest one. And the tokens is also meaningful as well. But those are usually easier to complete. So that gold quest is very, very difficult for how much time investment you're putting into it. It just, when you compare it to the daily missions, it just feels like, ooh, I'm putting in like maybe 5x 10x the amount of time it would take me to complete a daily missions to get this quest, right? And sometimes you're getting 200 golds for that. Or 200 credits for that. It doesn't feel that good. It just feels like big use of my time here. So it just feels skewed to me. Next thing I want to talk about was that the missions encourage everyone playing the same deck, because everyone is trying to complete these weekend missions at the same time, and you need to win is another thing, right? It's not like you can experiment, try new decks that maybe aren't going to work that well, but at least look fun to you. You have to win these games. So a lot of times you're just going to be looking up either suggested decks or streamer decks or meta looking decks, including that card. And what ends up happening is everyone's playing the same deck. So you just get a lot of mirror matches. You get a lot of tech counters, right? People just running armor right now, right? Because everyone's playing Nimrod. So you just don't get a lot of freedom in deck design during the weekend for most players due to this constraint. Now, some players are going to do the missions and then keep playing, but most people are going to do the missions and then log out. So you're really seeing a lot of players that are just focused on getting the weekend missions complete. So it just becomes a same deck meta for the weekend, which I don't necessarily think that was the intention when the system was created, but it's like an unintended consequence of how the reward structure is presented to players. So something interesting. And the next thing I want to talk about was that the requirement to win can be frustrating. So the fact that you have to win 20 matches, win 15 matches with a particular card in your deck, not all new cards are going to be strong in release. We could see that with Phoenix Force, where I got a bump after release. And even a lot of the cards during that week or during that month, during that season, was not that strong on release. I would say Jean Grey underperformed. I would say Echo underperformed. Legion overperformed for sure. Mirage, I think, was okay, like where it was presented to be. So that one is fine. But some of these new cards are just not going to be strong on release, and being forced to win with them instead of just playing with them and trying out new strategies, new deck designs, it just allows for some situations where some players for sure will just be trying to win, but don't know how to make a good deck with the card, and will just be playing for a long time and not really progressing in the quest at all. And that's just like something I feel sucks, but will for sure happen. I definitely remember for some of the Phoenix Force quests, I just played, I think, Bounce at the time, and I just put Phoenix Force in there because I was like, it's not better to make a Phoenix Force deck than to play a worse Bounce deck with Phoenix Force in there. And that's just like very like, is that really the design we should be having? Like, yeah, just just feels very weird if that's like optimal strategies for some of the deck builds. Anyways, something to talk about. And then I did want to talk about the last week. The first month was Patriot. So that was a Series 3 card. Not everyone had Patriot, but because it was a Series 3 card, it was a lot more accessible than a Series 4 or a Series 5 card. And I really thought that was going to be something moving forward, right? I gave him praise for that. Like, oh, wow, Patriot, yes, not everyone has, but a lot of people, especially people that have completed Series 3, all of them have them. So this is something that free-to-play players can look forward to. Hey, you're getting some of your gold back every month because the first week of a month you're going to get a Series 3 quest to get gold back. So I was like, yes, this is great. But now we come next month, it's moved up to Nimrod Series 4 card. Not significantly less people have it compared to Patriot or any Series 3 card at all. So now you've cut back the amount of people that can participate in this first week series quest compared to last month. So really not too happy about that one in particular. I thought it was going to be the standard that Series 3 cards would be for the first week. Turns out that's not the case. And I thought, and I could see why it's Nimrod here. Obviously, the spotlight this week is for Nimrod and Galactus. So you can see, oh, they want people to use their spotlight caches on Galactus Nimrod and then get the token kickback or the gold kickback for using your spotlight here. But I really don't feel like that's the approach you should be taking with the spotlights. You did say that you want the spotlights to be appealing on their own. You didn't want them to have any motivation. You just have to say, oh, I really want Galactus. Oh, I really want Nimrod. Oh, I really want Spider-Ham. That should be the motivation, not the, oh, I want to get the 150 gold kickback. That really shouldn't be the motivation. So I'm a little bit disappointed that they made this first week a Series 4 card instead of a Series 3, which I thought would be the standard moving forward. And then I just have some final suggestions for the weekend missions to make it feel a little bit better. So first off, just reducing amount of games needed. I just think that's a bit too much, in my opinion. You have to play 20 games, win 20 games. You have to win 15 games. The 3, 5, 10, those are very easy to do. So that one I'm fine with. But definitely the first two, I think, compared to the reward schedule, it's like so much time investment comparative. I also think you should change the requirement from winning the game to just playing the game, so that you have a little bit more freedom in deck design. You have a little bit more freedom in how creative you want to be. You'll see less of the same deck syndrome, since it's not structured the way you have to win. You can just play the games out whatever you like and have fun with that. So I think that would be a little bit better. I think the first week should always be a Series 3 or lower card. Don't think you should lock people out of getting the gold because they don't have Nimrod or they don't have Spider-Ham or whatever series card you want to put in there. I just think if it's Series 3, yes, not everyone's going to have all Series 3s, but it's going to be significantly more accessible, especially for that first week. I think that would go a long way of saying, okay, there is something for free-to-play players, which is something you always want to have, a little carrot there for them. And then I would just bring back the 72 hours. This is just a case of taking something away that you didn't have to. Obviously, I understand that maybe people weren't playing on the weekends with this change, and forcing it back to 48 hours would make more people on the weekend play. But the other suggestion is, if you're going to do that, just make the start times region specific so that all the regions would be starting around their weekend time, instead of for some regions it's perfect, but for some other regions you're starting like halfway through the weekend, that kind of thing. So those are some of my suggestions there. I just think it's a weird change for the weekends, just to move it to 48 and to have Nimrod there, and just hoping that maybe they see this or have a discussion and see what makes sense for them. But those are some of my thoughts. What are your guys' thoughts on it? I definitely see some people talk about the weekend missions and how it can feel tiring or feel like hard to grind if you want to do them. And, like, end of the day, it's, it's supposed to be a casual game in some sense. And especially, for the weekend, it feels weird that you're trying so hard to win with Nimrod. But anyways, that's my thoughts. Hope you guys enjoyed. Take care of yourselves and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Once you watch him, you won't go back. He'll teach you to marvel snap. Your skills will be improving. How you do